everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Heidi, and in today's video, I actually want to share how my Vipassana experience was on a practical level while I was in there and before I got all the insights and the takeaways. In my first video, I share about my Vipassana 10-day experience. I feel like that video really shared more of the benefits that I did receive. But there is another side to this, and I want to be really practical and grounded about it. And I feel that this video can be supportive just so that you can gain a full idea of what you may go through. And some of us may feel like, well, I'm not feeling the rainbows and butterflies. And for me, the rainbows and butterflies was obtained after I was able to go through the mud of my frustration, my agitations, my aversions, and my cravings. And so if you haven't caught that first video, then I welcome you to check out that first video. It's pretty long, kind of shares about my entire experience with a little bit more. And in this video, I wanted to stay more practical of like what's really happening within myself and some things that you may notice about yourself. And so I thought this can be really supportive. So let's dive right in. So some of the practical stuff that I wanted to share that I felt that I left out was that it is not a rainbows and butterfly journey. I came in with a lot of my own personal frustrations, agitations, aversions, cravings, likings, attachments, and ego self-structure. And so what this experience afforded me to be able to do is like witness that and really get a front row seat at noticing, oh, that's an identity structure I built. That's not real, because the ego structure is really there to support us in remaining safe. And so whenever something like our identity is feeling threatened, naturally, my experience with my ego is that it will go on these full-on tangents, aversions, upsets, and how could they, how dare they. And what I really love about this container is that, first of all, you're safe. You're in an environment that's conducive for this type of experience. And you just get to observe what naturally you don't observe on your day-to-day. We get caught up with the narratives and the storms that get created. And in this experience, because you're having the practical practices as you're experiencing your journey, you may have the judgments, like how could they? So in my first video, I shared about someone that had placed their sandals where I liked putting my sandals, and being able to get a front row seat at the ego self-structure that naturally comes up and goes, who was this? How could they? They did this intentionally. They should know this, so the natural thought forms that us humans can develop against someone, and it's all happening internally. And this is where our aversions and our frustrations, our agitations get created, which is really our own pain and misery. And so I really got a front row seat in this experience of not engaging, not speaking with others, yet you are totally in engagement with what's really happening. For example, someone's sitting next to you in the dining hall and it's so quiet and you can hear them chomping away at their food. My first reaction and instinct was a little aversion, and then just having the ability to be the witness to what was coming up for me, I think is the value. So first 10 days, I didn't experience the purity and the benefits. Actually, throughout the entire experience, I was just like, this is cool. I don't think I'll need it. And it wasn't until after I left that I really felt the purity and what I had just journeyed through. So in the Vipassana retreat, when I'm going through the 10 days, I'm actually in the mud. I'm not having these airy-fairy moments. I'm in the mud. And I'm having real life moments where I'm frustrated or I'm upset, or there were moments where I would just laugh at myself because it's such comedy to hear the thoughts that we can have, like, how dare this person walk so close to me? Or, this entitlement that one can gain from, and it's so silly, right? This entitlement about where someone placed their shoes, like, that's my spot. The ego self structure of mine. This is my car, my home, and I think those were the things that I had to work out. One of the teachings that's repeated throughout this is that you have to work out your own liberation. No one could do this work for you. And so that's what I'm doing essentially, is that I'm allowing the frustration or whatever, the narratives to form, the natural habits of the way I think to rise, and I'm working it out. I'm doing the practices though simultaneously. So I'm meeting these parts of myself that feel so afraid, attached, or identified to whatever it is. And I think one of the challenges I did face as I'm going through this is naturally for me, the thought was like, okay, how do I experience life if I'm not meant to have these? There was this part of me that was really struggling with not identifying, not in a sense that like one needs to, but curious to know, how does one live in life without a solid, this is mine, this is my home, right? And through the process that I'm probably still working through, is there was a little uncovering as I continue the practice. You just have to give yourself the opportunity to trust the process. Like, you might not get it. You might feel like this isn't doing anything, but you really don't know what you don't know until you're out of it. Like, I did not know the amount of stew and soup I was in until I did the work to get out of it. So I didn't even recognize the subtle aversions that I had created until I just kept doing the work, right? So it almost feels like, okay, put all this aside, your feelings, your entitlement, righteousness, but let's entertain this. Let's really do the work. Let's really do the practice. What I find that might be happening is that the practice is undoing the mind and its habits and its addictions and cravings. And you don't know what's really undoing until you actually go out into the world and you've really worked on that, and you go out into the world and you realize, I'm like at peace with what normally I have a little subtle agitation towards. For example, someone driving slow. I'm not a road rager. I used to be, and I really worked on that. And so I always considered myself like, I have no road rage. And since then, I've not gotten in an accident. When I was in my road rage period, I got in multiple accidents, the manifestation of my aversions. And then once I really worked on that, a total opposite, no more accidents. I pride myself in feeling like I'm pretty good at driving. However, there were these little things, like someone would drive really slow on the fast lane and an agitation would form, like, how could they? How dare they? Don't they know they're impeding traffic? How inconsiderate of them. So those are subtle agitations and aversions, and they're so subtle though that they feel like, well, this is life, it's normal, it's normalized. I normalized that. And then you go through this experience, and when I come out and there's someone driving relatively below the speed limit, instead of having that natural thought process of how inconsiderate of them and who, like, whatever, personalizing the experience, what actually happened that I didn't notice at first until I noticed is that I just naturally slowed down without any thought. So I'm really just accepting the reality as it is. And the reality as it is that someone is driving slower than I was approaching. So naturally, I'm going to slow down. And there was no how inconsiderate of them. There was actually no narrative or dialogue about it. It was more action of going right into what I naturally should do, is naturally slow down. And instead of wanting to go over and then go in front or whatever, or just like move over and feel that upset and personalization of their driving, I found myself just like really enjoying the drive and the presence of the experience of what is. And so if you hear my first video, I kind of touch on these things, but I didn't really go far into expressing to you that when you're on this journey, and I'm not saying this is a guarantee, but I really just, what I want to land is like, I really hope you give yourself the opportunity to really complete the full 10 days and to give yourself the chance of what could be possible without the expectations and without the needing to know if it's working. Because I found that, I just find that that can possibly be very supportive. In this whole experience, I think there was around 50 men and 50 women, give or take. I would say not take, definitely give. And in the women's section, there was only 2 people that I saw not returning after day 6. And in my first video, I shared how day 6 was actually day 4. Day 5 is when the real work started, because the first 3 days, I was really just in thought. And so it goes by fast. But then after the mind continues to sharpen, you're present. And when you're present, you get to really face the things that are really challenging you. Like, you really get to face your mind habits. And because when I'm present, I'm noticing I still have an hour. Instead of being off and daydreaming or disassociating, I'm just noticing I still have an hour. And there is a craving and an aversion starting to form where I can't wait till this meditation is over. Oh, how am I going to sit through this? Oh, the pain. So those are the natural mind habits. And what the practice does is, when the real work started for me, is being able to sit in that and then bring in the practice of equanimity and coming back to breath awareness and accepting. And a lot of this for me was just, I had to pull in. So really speak to your teacher on this. I didn't, but like in the moments where my mind would form a habit of, like where I would notice that I wanted this whole experience to end, when I was looking and craving for the end of this sit, I would bring in like a mantra, some might think, but just more of a reminder. Like I would say, anicca, love impermanence, this too shall pass. Equanimous, be equanimous. And like reminding myself, like, can I be with what is? And there was a lot of me reminding myself, like, accepting the moment as it is, not as I want it. For me, that really supported me. So, but if you are curious, because in the teaching, one of the things is when you have breath awareness, it's not about chanting, it's not about focusing on a word or whatnot, because although that really supports the mind, it's then another attachment to something. This whole experience, from what I received, was really just being in awareness of what is. Like being aware that you're having the craving or whatnot. It's just pulling awareness to it and not having an aversion to it or needing that to be different as well. And so that really, I mean, like now it's kind of hitting me, like me bringing in the reminders was me trying to feel better about wanting this sit to be over and really trying. But I think a great practice would have been to notice, just having the awareness of the craving that I'm craving and feeling the sensations of the maybe frustrations that could be arising, or just the discomfort of having to sit longer and feeling like, whatever happens, it's about bringing the awareness to what is happening and then feeling into the sensations of that. And it's in feeling into it and having the awareness of it that we bring the equanimity of, not saying like, oh, I, really like attaching to, I really like this, or I really don't like this. So I don't know if that was a little confusing what I shared right there, but this video, I do want to keep it short. My whole reason of wanting to also share this video is that, look, there were moments where I got bothered. Like, why is anyone in the restroom with me when I'm just trying to use it? Or like, I remember there was someone that I didn't know what was happening, but she was really loud, and it was during meditation time, and it was in the bedroom. I had just gotten to the bedroom, and I thought, gosh, they're not practicing, the natural narratives that form. And like, I had judgments. Like, I'm not coming into this free of judgment, compassion, love. I'm coming to this with my own aversions and my own narratives and my own judgments. And if that occurs for you, there could be another judgment that you're a horrible person, that you'll never find compassion and love. And I just want you to challenge that. It's not about being something that you aren't. It's about coming as your authentic self of where you're at and being honest about that. And then just this applying the work. Because like I said, it wasn't until the whole experience, even up to day 11 and day 10, I had my judgments. I had like my judgments of, in the first video I shared how so many people shared with me on day 10 when we were able to speak, to support us the next day and going back into the world. People shared, oh, this is my 7th time, whatever. And my righteous ego self-structure was like, why would anyone need this? Oh, they must have so many problems that they have to keep coming back. There was still a level of judgment happening within me, right? Someone shared how they don't go home and do the practice. And I just thought, you just thoughts, right? These judgments that can form. But it's not about judging myself for having them. It's about being able to witness, acknowledge, and leave space and room for it not to be true, in my opinion. And not attaching to my narratives as this has to be this way and that I'm right and they're wrong, that attachment to that. And so I was definitely able to notice, like, in some parts, like, oh, there goes the righteousness, the ego self-structure. And I didn't get it. It wasn't until after I left that I really understood what had taken place. And I didn't know what was happening or what I was working through or what I was undoing until I was in the space of day-to-day life that I'm in now, that I'm noticing something has shifted. Maybe I am unable to put a word to it, but there has been a shift because I can sense it. I can witness it and I can notice it and I can feel it. It took me going through my mud, and there's still mud, to come out to see, like, oh wow, there was a lot. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you know. You don't know you're toxic until you work on the toxic things, and then you come out of it and you realize, wow, I was really in a toxic lifestyle, thought process, and all that stuff. It really takes the work. You can't bypass the work. No one could do it for you. And I think that's where it feels so effort-filled, because it's a lot of effort to bring awareness and consciousness to your daily action. And a lot of the times you bring all this awareness and you're overwhelmed because there's this this frustration that I know I can build with myself of like, oh my God, why am I not getting this? Why am I being so judgmental? Why can't I be compassionate? Why can't, I get so hard on myself, and I have those tendencies to judge myself. Well, duh, if I'm judging others, chances of me doing it to myself is probably 20 times more. And so it's like unwinding that. And then possibly when we find the little bit of space, we might find when we find a little understanding towards ourselves, like when we can find a little grace, a little love, a little more, whatever it is, I think we get to find a bit more compassion towards ourselves. And when we have a bit more compassion towards our own self, we're able to have compassion for others and to have a little more understanding for others. I can work on this. And if others have hate, they can't make me hate. If I end up hating through others' hate, it's a choice of mine that I've made to hate. So just with that understanding in itself, the mastery of your oneself, to know thyself, the mastery of thy mind, I think is really beneficial. It's going to really support you in being empowered to knowing these choices and decisions are mine, of how I choose to respond and action with in life. Goenka will say in his teaching, he shares that one doesn't become a vegetable from going through this practice. Like, do whatever you want with me, cut me up, slice me. One becomes actually very actioned in their life. They're action forward, and their action comes from, instead of these spaces of aversions and cravings, when one sees clearly past the addictions, it's like, oh, that's the direction I'm going in. So one can action in that direction and leave aside that I like this or I don't like that. In my first video, I shared the example about my personal finances, and really waking up to knowing where I'm at now has a lot to do with my personal attachment to, my space and everything, when there is this clear opportunity to take advantage of. And although that direction isn't the direction I want to go, there's an attachment to this comfort I have where I'm at, and like the spaciousness and, everything I really like. There is an attachment, yet there's also a suffering that's being created because I don't have flexibility, because it's taking all my resources and there's things I need to take care of. And so, not to get in the mud of all that, but point is, through this practice, there was clarity to see my addictions, and then to be able to witness and recognize this may not be favorable, but what is unfolding is showing me there's an option, should I choose. So I can either continue this route of struggling and suffering, but there's also this other clear route that you're not going to like. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to stretch myself, yet it will also, it's more expansive because it expands my financial wallet. It expands the opportunity for me to clear out my debt, and expands the opportunity for me to let go of this self-structure identity that I have formed, to step into a new version that I'm asking for. I really believe that nature will serve you what you're asking for if you allow yourself to unfold with it. So, tangent, but want to just go back to, those 10 days, I didn't know what I would experience until it was over. Until it was done, I experienced the full benefits from it. And I look forward to making my way back as either a server, like servicing while I'm doing the experience, or, just doing the experience as an old student. But the benefits were so profound and in alignment to a lot of the things that I'm naturally inclined to visiting. One thing I didn't share, there's my dog. One thing I didn't share is that through this journey, though, of Vipassana, what I recognized is that there was a lot of this I was already doing, especially when I started this path. I didn't know I was starting a path, but I got into just self-help books, and my first book was The Buddha in the Mirror. And that's when I first started applying what I was reading into daily life. So that applying is the work. I didn't know. But when you take something and you actually apply it to your life, I was seeing direct results. Like I was feeling a shift, and that's probably what kept me on this path. And my dog wants to leave. He's so cute. Okay, we're going to leave soon. And so even with this experience, I think I find myself to be like the real gold in something is when you can experience the shift in real time. And so I think that's what's kept me in this path of growing and evolving and doing this type of work, is like we can read the self-help book, but if we're not integrating the work, which it's challenging, there's work, it's work, then we're not really probably experiencing what we just read. So I feel like a lot of the teachings were things that I actually was already naturally doing on this journey of self-improvement just by intuition when I was learning day by day, the different practices and teachings. And I was like, wow, I was doing Vipassana and I had no idea I was doing it. And, the self-help book kind of first started this opening of, I can make different decisions. And then I think that opened something within me that tapped into maybe something that was from past lives of me. Maybe I've always been on this Vipassana journey. Whatever it is, it just feels very true to my nature of journeying through this. And so if you happen to arrive at a 10-day and you only hear these like rainbows and butterflies of what the experience is, for me personally, I only got to experience the benefits and really receive the benefits once I was out of the experience. And that to say, I hope you give yourself the chance and opportunity to sit through an entire 10-day. And one last note I'll leave you on. I mentioned in my first video that there were moments where I felt like I was losing my mind because I was deep work of like some gross thoughts that I think I was really attached to. And if I could share anything with you that I know could be beneficial, first, talk to your teacher if you're struggling. Definitely they're there to support you. However, come back to the practice. Come back to the breath. If you find yourself consumed by the mind and you feel like you're going crazy, just continue the practice of coming back to, what was really important was it's not about trying to make yourself not think it. And Goenka really shared this in the teachings on day 9, and I was like, I could have definitely used that, but it was perfect because it was day 9. I was struggling with that. Come back to the breath, but when you're in the space of whatever it is, come back to the sensations that you're feeling in the present moment. What are the sensations that are arising? And really feel into that and the breath awareness. That's the best thing I can say, is to work through that and know that you're not alone and you're not, you can get through this, but also make sure you talk to the teacher and the manager. Even though it's a 10-day silent, you have your teacher, and there's like a running, well, for Joshua Tree, there was like a running manager that we can go to for anything. Like when I had my stomach ache, she got me, I had to tell her like so there were moments like that where I would to speak, but it's only when you really needed something, or you wanted to expand on your meditation and talk to the teacher. Okay, we're gonna head out, but that's the video I wanted to share, and I hope this adds and supports to what a Vipassana experience can turn out to be. You'll hear from everyone's experience is different. Someone mentioned this that I think is really, I resonate. We all have our different emotional traumas, and so what we experience will be very different for all of us, and that's okay. You're there for you to do this deep operation to get that all up and eradicated. So take care.